Hey everybody, and welcome back. So this is an Airbike update, which is my ultralight, and I know there's a little bit of confusion. I've gotten a couple of emails. My hobby life is two silos: model aviation and now my ultralight. Full scale aviation, I'm a pilot and I used to fly and be current and everything. It just got too expensive, and family and everything in life, and can't afford a hangar, can't afford an airplane, yada yada yada. So when you watch my videos, there's usually two types of videos. There's the video about my model aviation, which is giant scale, 188 inch, 197 inch wingspan planes, big ones. And then you got my ultralight. So this is about my ultralight, okay? I do want to start out with a couple of things that basically answer some emails. The Airbike, you can still buy drawings from Jordan Lake Aero, and just type in Airbike ultralight in Google and you'll find them. A gentleman named Ison designed the Airbike, and then Team Airbike, I think, was a company that bought it, the plans and everything. And then Jordan Lake is the one who now owns the plans that you can order the plans from. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that. Another thing is that yes, my Airbike is going to be Part 103. It will be under the 254 max limit. And I know there's a lot of people out there, and I think it's awesome that flies ultralights, and some of them are questionable on weight, which I don't care, and I don't think the FAA cares, because unless you hurt somebody, it's none of their business. But the thing is that my fuselage won't be covered. I've done everything to keep mine as a legal ultralight. Even though I'm putting the Kawasaki 340 in it, it's a lot closer to being at the max weight. I know how to paint. I saw an Airbike one time that weighed almost 360 pounds, which is like 110 pounds overweight. But it was paint. I mean, there's probably 50 pounds of paint on that airplane. It was up in Michigan. I saw that airplane. It was just incredible, the amount, and it was a beautiful paint job. But, basically you just want to cover the cover. So, I mean, if the covering's white, you just want to use white and just barely get it covered. And I'm going to use the Stewart Systems, which I fell in love with when I did the fuselage. And so, yeah, I just want to answer a couple of emails there. Mine will be Part 103, but in this update is continuing about the exhaust system. So let's jump into that real quick. So this is my update as of yesterday. Today is Sunday the 9th. So this is everything I did up until yesterday. And as you know, I got a new bottle of argon, so I was all excited to get going. I got my filler rod. I did want to answer an email. Somebody on my first update on the Airbike this year basically said, hey, you got two different size filler rods there. You got 3/32 and 1/8. And yes, I am experimenting. I mean, understand, I taught myself how to TIG weld. Now, I took welding in high school, so I've been a really good stick welder. I'd say I'm a decent MIG welder, but TIG was brand new to me when I decided to start the Airbike. And I bought the TIG welder first and wanted to make sure I knew how to TIG weld, because I was not going to build the Airbike airframe, the fuselage, without knowing how to TIG weld. So I'm experimenting with, if you don't know, if you want to TIG weld, I'm not going to teach you. There are so many great, fantastic videos on YouTube about TIG welding that you could go watch, and you will learn how to TIG weld off YouTube. I mean, you will. But there's a couple of things about TIG welding that you really need to think about deep in your brain, and you almost have to program yourself to think about it. If you remember when we were kids, we had the game called Operation, and you're reaching in to grab the bone. If you touch the outside, the buzzer goes off. With TIG welding, when you're holding the torch in your hand and you've got that arc going, you've only got about 1/8 of an inch to play with that arc before you get too far away from the material, or you're actually dipping the electrode into the molten metal. And once you dip it, it's normally needs to be, you need to turn off your welder. You got a little grinder, you regrind the tip to make sure it's a point. and then you start welding again. So I'm still learning how to TIG weld, believe it or not. I really want to become proficient. A couple of things about TIG welds. You can have really structurally good TIG welds that don't look that great. Or you can have really, really good TIG welds that are way too cold and they don't penetrate and they're not going to be strong enough. Okay? So the thing about TIG welding is that you've got to get the amperage, which is your heat, right to get the proper penetration. And you can see, another thing about welding, excuse me, you have to see what you're welding or you're never going to weld. Okay? I've seen so many times on YouTube where people can't weld, and it's because they're not able to see. So like me, I need reading glasses because I have LASIK surgery. So I put on my most powerful number 3 reading glasses so I can get right down there on what I'm welding and see when I start the electrode and I get all the metal starting to pool. And then I start to take my filler rod and I start dipping it in there and start working it across. I can see that they're all flowing together. Okay, now if it's a thick piece of metal, it's pretty easy to do. But when you're doing this really thin stuff like I did with this muffler, this is the hardest welding I've ever done in my life. And I experimented a lot with just raw materials, and I would burn through, melt through, which actually shows you've got enough heat. I would rather almost burn through than to not have enough heat and have a really crappy weld. I mean, structurally crappy weld. So by having these different thicknesses of rod here, depending on where, well, and another thing is, when you watch them TIG weld on YouTube and they got 2 flat pieces of metal, that's the easiest, TIG welding you can do. If it's a 90, still extremely easy. If you've got a 90 on a radius with an elbow over it and you've got to extend your electrode out a little bit longer and turn your gas way up, your argon, so that you can actually get to where you're welding, that's when it becomes a big, fat, it's a bitch to do for me. And from what I've talked to my other friends that are TIG welders, they're like, absolutely, Damon, that's the hardest part is when we're welding a part and you can't hardly get to the piece. Okay? So enough of the answering emails and the updates. So basically, if you real quick recap on my recap on my video I did the other day, 5 days ago or 4 days ago. You know, I got the header done end of last year. You know, I cut out a bunch of metal into cool shapes. Started working on what the pipes were going to be. Started cutting out and doing different pieces. Trial fitted them and tack weld them. Got my shapes, what I thought I wanted. Rolled the canister with my high-tech NASA roller there. Got that, which, by the way, I'm really proud of this. This is just amazing. I did this with the crappy tools I have. Then I started saying to myself, okay, how am I going to weld this? And in my mind, you have to go through all the steps because you don't want to weld 2 pieces together and then you can't get to where, you can't say I got weld 1, 2, 3 I can't get to. So mentally you got to go through a simulation of welding the whole thing to make sure you can get to all the pieces and parts. And then you got to be able to lay it all in the right angles that you can reach it. So like I said earlier, TIG welding, you have to be so steady with that torch. You got an 1/8 inch. So you got to be able to rest your elbow or rest your arm or rest your wrist, rest your hand so you're not going to move. And then your filler rod, you've got to be able to rest it on something. I got 2 big styrofoam white blocks. And believe it or not, white doesn't absorb heat. Unless it's really close to my torch, that white styrofoam doesn't melt. So I can get that blocks in different angles and shapes to be able to get my hands to where I want to weld. So once I welded up the first part of the pipe, I was super excited I was able to weld it. I hated the way the welds look. These welds look like crap, but they are structural. Because I could see as I was welding this really thin material that I, without a doubt, was getting really good penetration. In some places, I almost went through. And the way you can tell you're going through is as you're welding along and you got that hump, and that hump starts to get really flat and wide, you're starting to go through the material, at least for me. And another thing is, everybody, I want you to understand, I don't speculate. This is just my experience. I will never on my channel tell you, I think this will work, go try it. I only share my own experiences and what works for me because I don't want you to waste your time and money, okay? So then I trial fitted, once I welded that together, and after about 8 hours, not continuously, fiddle farting around with stuff, I was able to get the canister to look like this, which I am super proud of how it looks. But a couple of things I want you to kind of realize also, when you sometimes see what looks like rust color in my welds, I believe, I'm not sure, 100%, I believe I didn't get enough argon in there, because my argon tank is like 60 or 80 bucks to fill up, something like that. 60 bucks, I think. And it's that little pony, I don't know if it's called pony, it's like, what, 3 feet long, 4 feet long? But there's a part of my mind I want to use the minimum argon because I don't want to keep going back and forth to the Indiana oxygen and getting more argon. So I try to keep my argon, I think it's at 10 or 12 cubic feet a minute or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I just don't, I hate cranking my argon way up because I'm just using argon, okay? Here's another angle of the welds, and they do look hideous, but they are structurally strong. And that's another thing I would say. There's a lot of experts out there that's never done this. There's a lot of experts out there that will tell you what you do and they don't know what they're talking about. So I know these are structurally strong. I know they're going to work. I know I'm going to get some trolls are going to say those welds are crap. Oh well, this isn't holding the wing to the airplane. This is a freaking muffler, okay? And it's not. It's going to be fine. This is the other end of the canister. Another thing that is very frustrating to me with TIG welding is I think my tack welds are too big because I like to do them at 90-degree intervals around a radius. And then as I'm welding along and I get to that, and you can kind of see it here, the little bumps in the welds, those were my tack welds. I think I'm making my tack welds too big. I need to make them smaller. And my next step is I've ordered some muffler hanger things from Amazon. I'm going to build all my brackets. I would like by next weekend to have the entire canister hanging on the fuselage. So the pipe that goes from this isolation dampener here down to my canister and all of that, I would like to have that all figured out by next weekend. I've got some really high temp paint that I'm going to paint this all black and hopefully have that all done by next Saturday or Sunday. And then I think my next steps is to get the engine wired and get all the electronics hooked up because I want to start this engine really bad. Once I've done that little run on the engine, then I'm going to get back to my left wing and get that all, the ribs glued to the spar and all of that stuff. So that's my little update, everybody. I hope that you're enjoying this channel. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, please do it. I'm trying to build my YouTube. And that's it. So hope you enjoyed this update. Rock on. I'll see you next time. Be safe. And make sure you get kids involved in aviation. Because there's physics, there's geometry, there's math, which is geometry. There's so many things in aviation that a kid could learn from and grow up and have a cool life with. So take care, everybody. Be safe. Rock on. See you next time.